What up, what up? Winbush here, and today I'm excited to show you guys this new plugin for After Effects called Physics Now. Now, if you use like Cinema 4D and use Dynamics, it's pretty much the same thing, except for this is all in After Effects and it's using 2D elements. So you can bring in vector files, you can make shapes in After Effects and make a simulation out of them. So the guys at Crunchy Creative were nice enough to send me a license. I kind of played around with it for a few weeks. I wanted to push the software and I came up with this. So Physics Now doesn't exactly do liquid simulations, but I came up with a little hack to kind of make this effect. And so without further ado, let's jump right into it. What up, what up? So let's get right into it. Before I show you how to do the liquid effect, let me just give you a quick rundown on Physics Now. So I'm going to make a new composition, just call it demo. Let's just make this like 4 seconds. 60 FPS is good. Click OK. All right, so now I have a blank canvas. What you'll do first is you'll go up to Window, Extensions, come down to Physics Now, and then it will have this window pop up with these settings here. And so just a little recap of, or not a recap, but a little overview of what it does. This button right here, this will add your dynamics to your object. The second one is for static, like stuff that you wanted to collide against. This one will take the dynamics off of the object you have selected. This one right here will do a simulation, but without keyframes, because this one right here with the little keyframes underneath, this one is going to give you keyframes in case you want to use it like on a render farm or something of that nature, but it does simulate a little bit slower. So most of the time I use this one. And then this one just exits all your simulation out altogether so that you can start over. So now let's just do a little quick rundown of how this works. And excuse my voice, I just got over a cold, so might sound a little bit nasally, but I'm going to start by just making the square, which could be our ground plane, and then let's say we can make a star. So I'll make this exactly in the middle here. Just click and drag out. Let's not make it too big. Maybe with the point looking down so it has something to bounce off of. And then I'll just I'll move my star higher up so we can see how the dynamics work. So let me get rid of my action save stuff. There we go. So now if I click on the floor, I'm gonna click on this button. That's the static one, and you'll see it comes up to static settings. You can set stuff like the bounce and friction. Let's make our friction like 0.2. And then resolution, if you're using dynamics and like Cinema 4D, resolution is pretty much like steps. So if you have a bunch of objects and some of them might go through your object, you can raise up the resolution to kind of resolve that. And so let me click on my star now, and I'll click this motion button, and it's going to give us a bunch of dynamic settings. So if I open this, we have the same pretty much settings here. Let's make our friction like 0.1. And if you ever want to know what everything else in here does, just click on the question mark and it will open up this help menu, and it goes through everything that you need to know about what all the different attributes are. So for this, I just want to do something quick and simple. Let's close these up. All right, so I'm going to hit the simulation button here, and you can see we have our star bouncing, and it's working dynamically, all in After Effects. So like I was saying, like if I hit the U button, no keyframes at all. This is just all simulated within After Effects. So let me click on the X and then click on the one that does keyframes. And this isn't a complex animation, so it's going to still render at a decent speed. But if you're doing something really complex, usually that one takes a little bit slower. But now if I select my star, hit the U button, I can see we have all of our keyframes for position and rotation in here. So that's just a little overview of exactly how this works. And now for the example I really want to show you guys, I came up with this little hack to kind of make it look like there's liquid moving dynamically all in After Effects. And so the trick to this is just using a bunch of spheres pretty much to fake this motion here. Like all the spheres are bouncing off each other, but if you use like a choke and a fast blur, you can make it look like it's liquid. So let's get right into it. I already have my scene already set up here. I got some free stuff off the internet. It's just a vector file for like our beaker and our jar here. So to get started, I'm gonna actually trace the shape of what we have here. Like, it works with vector files, but what I was finding with especially how many spheres I've had, sometimes they were just breaking through or not moving dynamically at all. So the best way I found to get rid of that is to kind of just trace a shape within After Effects, and this will kind of just be our boundary. So let me turn off the fill here. I'll probably turn on stroke so you can see what we're doing. So I'm just going to trace this. And it doesn't have to be exact, just enough so our stuff has something to bounce off of. So I'm going to rename this just ground beaker, I guess. I'm going to move this underneath my layer of my ground beaker. There we go. And then I'm going to go up to the top one, which is the one that's going to be pouring out of our liquid here. Make sure I'm clicked off, so I'm not going to, so I start a new file. So I'm clicked off, click my pen tool, and I'll start to trace again. So again, we're just going to outline this. It doesn't have to be exact, just enough that our stuff can move dynamically on it. Like so. Boom, there we go. And I'm just going to name this one pouring beaker. In my timeline, I'm going to move that below here. And I like working with colors to just organize it. So I'll make this one fuchsia. And I'm going to make this one orange. Then everything else, I'm just going to make gray. So I know exactly what layers I'm working with. All right, hit Control S to save it. All right, so now on to the next part. If I look into my, let's look into my original comp here. So if you can see here, the trick to it was making a ton of little spheres in here. And when you hit dynamically, or if you hit the dynamic button, then all the spheres will start to smash down and collide against each other. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm not going to make as many. I think in this one I have what, 290 spheres, which is crazy, but I really want a lot of liquid to pour out. So I'll just do a couple here, show you guys how I did it. So I'm going to start by making this circle here in the middle. So if I click and drag directly here in the center, if I hold Control and Shift, I can make a tiny circle here. I don't want it to be too big, so around that size is good. So I'm going to move this into our beaker here. Sorry, I have snapping on. There we go. So I'm moving into the beaker, not touching any of the boundary boxes there. And then in my timeline here, I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate this a bunch of times. Actually, before I do that, I can always add our motion to it. So let me click on this, add our dynamic, because I want to make our bounce like 0.7. I'm going to take off all the friction, and I like doing this ahead of time. I mean, you can add dynamics afterwards, but it's just easier this way. So I'm going to duplicate my circle a ton of times here. Let's say like 18. Okay, so number 18, I'm going to click and drag this all the way out to this end of the beaker. And then I'm going to click back on my shape layer 1 and select everything in between. And then in my align here, you can distribute it evenly. So I could probably fill this in a little bit more. And if you don't have this align box, you go to window and your align's right here. I already have it set up in my workspace here, so it's always there. So I'm going to hit, actually, I'm going to just, let's see. I'm going to take my layer 18 and just delete that. Then I'm going to select my 17, hit Control D a few more times. Let's say like 22. So I'm going to do that again. Let's drag this all the way over. And what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get as many circles in here as possible. The more circles you have, the more liquidy it's going to look. So again, let me click all my circles here. Hit my distribute horizontally. And there we go. That should be good right there. So now I'm gonna have all these select, or my circle selected. Hit Control D again. Drag these up, and then just move these up a little bit. Then I'm gonna select all my circles again. Hit Control D. And I'm just gonna repeat this process until I get a ton of circles in there. Like I was saying, the more circles you have, the more liquidy it's gonna be. So I'll just, for this example, I'll just do this a couple more times. I know it could get kind of boring. So I'm going to select all these. And you'll notice the more you add, the slower your machine is going to get. I'm on a pretty fast machine right now. I'm on a Threadripper 1950X. You're already starting to see a little bit of lag in there. Not too much, but just keep that in mind depending on your system specs. You might see a little bit of lag in there. So I don't want these touching the edges at all. So I'm gonna select the circles that are on the edges, kind of just bring them in a little bit. And these don't have to be perfect, because once we add dynamics, they're all gonna fall into place anyway. So I want to take these ones that are closer to the edge, just kind of bring them in a little bit. Then I'll do, let's see, a couple more circle layers. Alright, so I'm just going to select these. Bring these up. Like so. I don't want these to the edges, so I'm just going to bring these in. The ones that we have here. And that should be fine. I mean, it's not a lot of liquid, but I don't want to bore you guys on this tutorial, so let's just hit play. Actually, let me save first. And let's hit play, see how everything's going to work out. So give it a second to calculate here. All right, there we go. So we can see our stuff is starting to really collide here. And the only reason it took so long is because we have a lot of spheres. So imagine having this many spheres, 290. I mean, that just took a couple minutes to calculate there, but there we go. So it looks like everything falls and settles into place. And so after this, our next motion is we're going to want our beaker to turn over on the side and pour it into this container here. See, once it hits 0, see, now we have our dynamics working pretty fast there. Okay, cool. So now what I want to do is let's turn back on our beaker layer, because I want to, okay, so there's our vector file. So I want to pick whip these down to our shape that we made earlier, because once we have our stuff falling down like that, let's say maybe like 1 second in, I want to actually rotate this pouring beaker right here. So I hit R, come down to rotate. Maybe, let's say it takes about a second to rotate all the way over. And that's not how I want that to turn. So I'm going to click on this anchor point. Let's move our anchor point more towards the middle right here. Now let's, there we go. So now if I pour, hopefully it will pour everything into the beaker there. So I can move my timeline out a little bit and move everything back here. Turn my beaker back on down here. Hit Control S to save it. Then I'm gonna hit X to kill the calculation that we had earlier. It's going to take a few moments to knock out all the simulation that we had. So I'm gonna pause video again, wait for this to finish. Oh, actually, there we go. That went faster than I thought. Okay, so now if I run it through my timeline, nothing is happening, but we have our beaker pouring. So now I'm going to have to run simulation again. So let's say, let's bring it down to 5 seconds on our timeline. I hit the end button to bring it into where my cursor is. So I'm gonna do like a 5-second simulation. So let me hit play. and I'll see you guys in a few minutes after this is done calculating. All right, so now I'm back. My simulation took a little bit to simulate there, a few minutes, but if I hit 0 on my keyboard, we can see our stuff move down. Everything is starting to fall into place, and it's falling into our new beaker there. So yeah, everything looks pretty good to me there. There we go. So now we want to make it look liquid. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to take my tutorial setup comp. I'm going to bring it down and make a new comp out of it, because I kind of want to come through, take all my bottom layers down here, and I'm just going to copy. Actually, I'm going to not copy. I'm going to take them and paste them into the new layer. So I'm going to hit Control X, take away those layers there, bring them into here, hit Control V, because I want to use my original layer kind of as a pre-comp, but I didn't want to pre-comp it. I just want to kind of bring in, since I have all my simulation here already working, I just want to come and bring all my new stuff into my new layer. So I'm going to take my top beaker here, hit Control C, because my top beaker, I had pick whipped my my shape here to my beaker. So I'm going to turn off the shape because I want to make sure that I just have the rotation action there. So I have my vector beaker in the new scene now, and actually I could bring this up to comps, and I'll just name this tutorial, I guess final, whatever you want to call it. So then I come back to my other layer, or my other comp. I'm gonna take my beaker, hit Control X, and I'm gonna bring it into my new setup here, Control V. There we go. And in my original composition, I'm just going to turn off these layers so we don't see them, so that all we see now is the simulation that's happening. So that's all I want in this composition. But if I come into my new composition, I'll see everything as we had it before. And the reason I did that is because I want to start adding some of the filters to this tutorial comp here. So I could get rid of this. And let me come up to my effects and presets, and let's just do like a fast blur. So I'm gonna type in fast, do a fast box blur on let's say 5. See what this looks like. Let me bring it down to 4. I guess 5 worked. And what that does, it kind of makes it look a little bit liquidy now, but it's really blurry. So to get past that, let's add a matte choker. So I add a matte choker, bring this down to like 1, 10. Let me see if I remember the settings that I used. Actually, I could go back to my original, see what my matte choker settings are. I probably just copy and paste it. See if this works. There we go. So my matte choker settings are 0, choke 1, grade level softness 10, 0, 0, 100, 1. If you want to follow along with those exact settings there, and there we go. It looks like liquid. So if we want to blend it a little bit more, actually, let me change the color of it. So I could go tritone, drop this in here. We had like an orange color before, so let's go with orange. Make everything orange there. There you go. We could just add a glow for a little extra effect there. So I'm just going to use the default glow under stylize that's built in After Effects there. And there we go. So we have like a nice glowy liquid ooze there. And of course, like I was saying before, the more spheres you have, the better liquid effect you're going to get. Like in this one, I had 290, so we had a lot more to work with, but for the tutorial, I didn't want it to take so long, so we just used a couple of layers there. You can see we have our beaker filling up, and then it's going to pour over, dump everything out. And I'm doing a RAM preview right now, so it's going to work itself for a little bit. So we have it tilting over. We can see our spheres are dynamically working along our beaker here. There we go. Once it's done, everything kind of, it looks like it's evaporating, but it's really not. That's just because we have our fast blur and our matte choker in there. So if we would have had more spheres, it would have looked a lot more natural, a lot more fluid. But for a tutorial, this should be good enough. You see it's already going slow as it is. So just wanted to show you guys how to make this liquid effect. And you have to play around with your settings here too, with the fast blur and the matte choker, to get the results that you want. So hopefully it settles down here and it starts looking a little bit more like liquid. I don't want to add more spheres. That's going to slow everything down. There we go. We're starting to see everything can pile up, it looks like. There we go. We got a couple more seconds left until this finishes out. Let me hit 0. See it play out. So we have our liquid. It's pouring into our beaker. So yeah, if you guys want to play around with this at home, this plugin is by Crunchy Creative. So just Google Crunchy Creative, look him up on YouTube. He has a good explainer video kind of showing a lot more of what Dynamics Now does, or I mean Physics Now, sorry, does. And yeah, if you want to follow along, I'll put this up on my Gumroad. So if you guys want, I can put my original file here that has all the spheres in there, so you'll get a way better result whenever you go to do your simulation. So if I look at my pre-comp, let's open this up. You can see we have a lot more spheres, 290. So I'll leave this on my Gumroad. I'll leave a description below. So if you guys do decide to try out Physics Now, you'll have something to start off with the caveat that I do have a higher running system. Like I said, I have the Threadripper 1950X. So just keep that in mind if you have something running a little bit slower. I did run it on my laptop before that has a, I think a Skylake Intel CPU in there, and it ran pretty good. So just keep that in mind. So hopefully this helped you guys out. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below. I'm going to do another tutorial here, bringing my daughter back in. She wanted to actually do a Pop-Tart popping out of a toaster, sorry. And so we're going to do that with Physics Now. So make sure you guys check back next week for that tutorial. Hopefully I'm not sick anymore and I won't sound nasally. So until next time, keep creating. I'll see you guys again. Thanks for watching.